see you guys in the dark.
This event happened a few months ago, and I'll try to describe it in great detail, because after retelling this story many times, absolutely no natural explanation fits, and everything was witnessed by two people at the same time. I met up with a cousin to have a beer at the Friday Samba gathering in Largo de Santa Cecilia, a weekly event that always gets very crowded, where people sit at tables and chairs spread across the square and freely go into the surrounding bars to buy drinks or use the bathroom. We stayed talking from around 8:30 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. until we literally drank 2 beers each, shared a plate of chicken bites, and nothing else before deciding to leave. I want to emphasize what we consumed to make it clear that we were not drunk or under the influence of any hallucinogens. Before walking back, we decided to use the restroom, but the bar we were standing in front of was too crowded, so we decided to go into the bar next door. That's when the whole anomaly began. We entered the bar, and it was completely empty. I mean, not many people. There wasn't even a bartender, no customers, no human being at all. The bar was open and fully lit, as normal. There was simply nobody there. We went to the restroom in the back, which only had stalls and sinks. My cousin entered the first stall, and I entered the second. During the few minutes we were there, I found it strange that my cousin kept knocking against the divider between the stalls, almost as if he were leaning on it, but nothing beyond that. When I came out to wash my hands, there was also a man washing his hands at the sink in front of the first stall. I stood next to him, looked him in the eyes, and he looked me directly in the eyes as well. I had never seen that person in my life. He was an older man, probably around 50 or 60 years old, with a very serious expression, but otherwise just an ordinary person in a public restroom. I looked toward the first stall, where I had just seen my cousin enter, and it was empty. I found it strange that he had already left, but again, nothing impossible. I had just assumed he was waiting for me outside the bar. I saw the strange man finish washing his hands and walk out. I had finished too, and left in the same direction. That's when I noticed he was wearing a green waste bag on his back identical to my cousin's. The bar was still completely empty. I watched the man walk to the sidewalk and stop as though he were waiting for someone. I also walked out to the sidewalk and once again stopped beside this person. I had no idea who he was. Again, we looked directly into each other's eyes with absolutely no sign of recognition from either side. I looked around for my cousin. Since I had left the bar, there were now lots of people on the sidewalk. I walked around a bit looking for him, but nothing. I thought, that's impossible. He must still be in the restroom. So I went back into the bar to look for him. As I walked toward the restroom, while the bar still remained completely empty, I felt my phone vibrate and saw it was my cousin calling me. Obviously, I answered immediately and asked where he was. Literally while he was responding, I turned around to look once again toward the sidewalk, and exactly where the strange man had been standing 1 second earlier, there was my cousin, standing in the same position, wearing the same green waste bag. We looked at each other and instantly recognized one another, so I walked back outside the bar. The moment we met, we almost simultaneously asked, "What the hell just happened?" That's when he told me his version of the events we had just experienced. His version was very similar to mine, but with some extremely important differences. He said he had not been banging on the stall divider at all. Quite the opposite. He had gone into the restroom, finished quickly, and had been waiting outside the bathroom but still inside the empty bar for me for more than 10 minutes. He also saw a strange man washing his hands next to him. However, according to him, the man wasn't just older, his face was deformed, and in his words, he had an incredibly heavy energy, as though he wanted to hurt someone. He saw this strange man follow him out of the restroom and recognized parts of the clothing as being what I was wearing. Just like I had only recognized the green waste bag, he recognized my black t-shirt. When he saw the deformed man walk back into the bar, he decided to call me. According to him, he then witnessed almost a metamorphosis. As the man turned around, he saw changes in posture, shape, and face, and by the time the figure fully turned around, it was me standing there. After that, we simply met up and walked toward his house, or I would call an Uber. Everything was completely normal, as if nothing had happened. My cousin and I are both very skeptical people. He told me he spent days afterward feeling genuinely terrified, and I still have no reasonable explanation for what happened. I've been telling this story to friends, family, anyone that will listen since it happened a year and a half ago, but nobody has ever been able to come up with a reasonable explanation. I met my best friend on Twitter as we were in the same fandom for a YouTube group. After FaceTiming every day for 6 months, I flew to Canada to stay with her for a week. We had just gone out to lunch and we were both pretty tired. We decided to just go back to her house and take a nap. I was kind of bummed about it, because I didn't want to waste any of the time I had left with her, but I didn't say anything. Here's where it gets actually stupid. On the drive back, one of the YouTubers from our fandom posts a photo dump on Instagram. I'm scrolling through while she's driving and I spot a shirtless selfie. As two dramatic fangirls do. I start screaming at the top of my lungs. My friend wanted to see the pic, but I told her she'd crash the car if I showed her while driving. So she pulled into the nearest parking lot where we proceeded to actually tweak out and lose our minds over it for 2 straight hours. I wish that was an exaggeration. Trust me, I understand how dumb this sounds. Deciding that 2 hours in a Catholic Education Center parking lot was too long to be tweaking over a shirtless boy for. My friend went to turn the car back on to leave. The car starts making the most insanely terrifying sound, like the engine was about to fall right out the bottom. The dash lights are flashing, and when they put the car in reverse, it simply won't move. She tries multiple times, but no luck. Something is wrong with the car. She called her dad, but he didn't answer. So I decided to FaceTime my mom as she is super knowledgeable about cars. She told me it sounded like the car was low on oil. On FaceTime, she walked me through how to check the oil, and we discovered that the dipstick was bone dry, not a single drop of oil in that car. Touching it with our fingers and everything. Absolutely none. My friend is confused, because her dad literally just changed her oil that previous weekend. My mom said it's possible that he didn't secure it well, and it leaked or something. My friend calls her dad again, and this time, he answers. He's at work and says he will leave to come find us, and bring supplies to put more oil in the car. He's confused though, because if the car were to leak oil, it would be all over the driveway, right? Between him stuck in traffic, and having to finish up some more stuff at work, it takes him over 2 hours to come find us in this parking lot. In the meantime, my friend and I are having the most fun either of us have ever had in our lives. We were happy for some reason. Neither of us even slightly tired anymore. It was like 3 a.m. sleepover vibes, and every little thing was the funniest thing we've ever heard. Finally, her dad arrived. He gets in the driver's seat and turns on the car. It comes on perfectly. No noise. No flashing lights. No issues putting it in reverse. The car is fine. He gets out and lifts the hood, checking the dipstick. The car has oil. The perfect amount. Nothing is wrong with the car. My friend and I are losing our ever-loving minds. It makes no sense. The car had no oil. I would think that it was just us being stupid and not knowing how to check oil if it wasn't for my mom on FaceTime who witnessed that it was completely and utterly dry. That car did not have any oil. And now, it did. And now it's fine. Her dad thought we were idiots. We get in the car and drove back home with no issues. But we did see upwards of 10 different angel numbers on various billboards, license plates, bus stop signs, etc. throughout the drive. We got back to her house and proceeded to have the greatest night of our lives. Still to this day, it's the most fun I've ever had. We both laughed so hard that day that we lost our voices. I don't know why we were stuck in a parking lot for 40 hours that day, but I think maybe we were being protected from something that would have happened if we never pulled over. I don't know. I can't explain it. Nobody can. There was no oil in that car. This happened in 2019 when I was 28 years old. I went to Greece with my mom and little sister. We stayed at a hotel for like 5 days or so, and on the first day I saw a woman, around 36 years old, from the same country we live in, with her partner and 3 kids. As soon as I saw her face, I felt an immediate recognition and a feeling of love come up. It was a very strong, undeniable feeling. Not like, hey, I think I know her, no. It was like a very obvious, oh my god, I'm so happy to see her again. And I love her so much. It felt like I've been close with her my whole childhood, like a family member. Mind you, we have different ethnic backgrounds, even though we live in the same country. So she definitely wasn't family. Anyway, I tell my mom this and she's like, yeah, I actually got the same feeling, the feeling of knowing her. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not the only one. But holy moly, this is weird. For the next few days I was going through my memories and trying to find out where I knew her from. I just couldn't shake this feeling off of me. It was too weird. And I'm the kind of person who, when confronted with something inexplicable, needs to find the answer. The last night of our stay, my mom, my little sister, and I were drinking some mocktails at the pool. This lady and her family sat at the table next to us, and at one point her toddler started walking around and came over to our table. That's when the lady came up to us, and my mom started a conversation. At this point, I'm like, okay, I need to get this off my chest, even though she might find me weird. It's the last night, and I'm probably never seeing her again, so fit. I'm like, hey, so, I want to say something, but I know it's really weird. So, Ma, I have this strong feeling I know you from somewhere, but I don't know where I know you from. Her. I have the same feeling. Me. Get what? What the hell? Her. In fact, even your voice sounds familiar. I have a distinct, a little raspy voice. I've been thinking about where I know you from, but I don't know either. This is so weird. So for the next 30 minutes, we went through every possible thing where we could have known each other from. But the thing is, we live very far from each other. We have very different social lives. And she hasn't been around the area I live and work in. And I haven't been to her area where she lives in. Not even close to that place. We have no mutual friends. We have literally no connections whatsoever. In my mind, I concluded that we must have known each other on a soul level. Because what else could it be? This happened in May 2024. I was attending a conference in my hometown as a PhD student. Many professors that had taught me during my master's were here. A few minutes before the first afternoon presentation, I was arriving to the lecture room with my boyfriend, also a PhD student, and I noticed one of my former professors in the same room. We got along well during my master's, as she had been my referent for my thesis and had written me recommendation letters for my PhD program, so I was excited to go talk to her. I went up to her and said something along the lines of, "Hi." Her name. "It's my name. I'm happy to see you." And she looked at me in a very weird way. She said, "I know. We just spoke for 15 minutes in the hall. You told me about your PhD. I was super confused and I was like, are you sure it was me? I just arrived in this building." But she insisted that it was indeed me. So the conversation ended very awkwardly, and I just moved on with the conference. I do not have any memory loss issues. I was with my boyfriend the entire time, and we had just come back from lunch. My boyfriend was also weirded out when I told him, as we had stuck together since lunch, and none of us had spoken to someone in the hall during lunch break. I didn't see anyone else that looked like me at this conference, which was quite small. Plus my professor knew me well enough not to mistake me for someone else. Weirdest experience of my life. I usually wake up each day around 6 a.m. On weekends, I normally just go back to sleep, but this weekend I decided to just stay up. I was too lazy to make myself food, so I checked to see what was open close to me, and it said there was a Wendy's. So I ordered on the app, drove to the drive-thru, and my breakfast. Had a good day. That was yesterday. Today, I was driving and happened to see the Wendy's I got my food from. It's closed. Permanently. Signage taken down and everything. I double-checked the address. it was the same one. But it's not in the app now. I checked online. It's been closed for 4 months. The empty bottle of orange juice and sandwich wrappers I got from there are still in my trash. My bank statement reflects a charge at that Wendy's. The address and store number are on the statement. The food was real, and it was good. The address is still stored in my GPS and reflects a trip there yesterday morning. So yeah, I am a little discombobulated here because the thick plottins. I called Wendy's this morning, and it has been closed since January and has not been licensed to sell food since then, nor do they have any employees there anymore. Back in 1995, I was getting ready for work at the same time I always did, probably around 7 or 7:30 a.m. in time to arrive at work just before 9 a.m. On the way to work, something felt slightly different. You know, when you're so used to traffic flows, or maybe the sun in the sky at particular times of day. I probably didn't pay too much attention to it at the time, but something felt not quite the same as usual. When I got to work, my colleague said something like, "Nice of you to join us," and there were way more people in the office than when I usually arrive. I was clearly confused, and they pointed out it was already past 10:30 a.m. This incident has bugged me over the years. It's never happened before, or since. I have no history of mental illness whatsoever. I've never fainted or passed out at any time for any reason, and I wasn't sick with anything. At the time of the incident, I don't think it's paranormal. I'm generally a skeptic, and I'm sure there must be an explanation of how I lost a couple of hours of my life. But here I am decades later, still with no explanation.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.